I'm very pleased to be here on My Magical Thing with Anna McKerrow, who is a Reiki master, tarot reader, author, editor, and witch. Anna, it's lovely to have you here.
Oh, Julian, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
You're welcome, my friend. Thank you for taking the time to show us your magical thing. The time has come. Anna, may we see your magical thing?
You may. Here is the great reveal. Dun, 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 dun. Right now, I don't know if you can see that. So my magical thing that I've brought to show and tell today is King of the Witches by June Johns, which is a paperback. Oh, subtitle: The World of Alexander's. Okay, so there's the back cover there. It was brought out by Pan Books in, oh, let's see, shall we?
1970 something.
1969 even.
69. Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah,
So that's
right.
actually that's a first edition
Uh,
paperback. There we are. So the reason this is my magical thing, it has a little story attached to it. So back in the 90s, I was a baby witch and I was doing my A levels at college. And one of my A levels was communication studies, very useful in life. And I decided I was going to do a project. You had to make a publication of some kind, and I kind of did like this is an introduction to Wicca. So Wicca was huge at the time. Obviously, it was all like, within our niche. It was enjoying a lot of popularity, and I got very into it around that time. So I was about 16, 17 at this point. And you had to interview somebody to put for content in your publication. So I kind of cast around and thought, who can I interview? Not Alexander's. But I had, this is not my magical object, but I had my first tarot set, which was the Tarot of the Old Path. And in here, they had a variety of contributors, including Janet and Stuart Farrar, Lois Bourne, and a lady called Ashlyn Lester. And it was of the time they printed people's home addresses underneath contributed from blah blah blah. This is the home address. So Janet and Stuart Farrar, who I was quite a fan of at the time, that was care of their publisher. So I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to write to them. They probably won't reply. But Ashlyn had her home address underneath. And so I wrote to her and I wrote to a couple of other people in there just to say, I'm doing this project. Can you help? And because there was a bio of each person in there, and I read about how she'd been a high priestess and she was a tarot reader and she did all of these, she'd done quite a lot of media and things. Anyway, so she wrote back to me very kindly. And she said, yes, you can come and interview me. So I went down to Fulham where she lived and with my mum, and we went down on the bus because I lived in Bristol, and I interviewed her for a couple of hours, which was brilliant. And I really we will get to this, obviously. Um, I was just thinking about what I asked her, some general questions, but I do remember asking her a question about, do you think that Wicca appeals specifically to women because of the emphasis on the goddess? Is it a quite feminist thing? She got really angry about it and she said, no, no, it's not about that. It's all about balance. It's the god and the goddess. And she was not a feminist, I don't think. Although she was a very strong, very impressive, very magical woman anyway. So we did the interview and she sent me away. She was very fierce but powerful woman. Nice though, and obviously very kind with her time. And anyway, so she sent me away, and she sent me away with a copy of this as research, which is the book of it's he didn't write it. June Johns, whoever she was, wrote it, but it's kind of the story of Alexander's life. So Alexander's, as I'm sure most people are watching know, was in Gerald Gardner's coven, and then it was all very much spearheaded Alexandrian Wicca after that, and with his wife Maxine Sanders, and for a time that was, certainly at the time when I was in the 90s, looking at all of that, that was really popular. Things have moved on sort of subsequently. Anyway, she sent me away with a copy of this, and she sent me away with a copy of Maxine's book, which I can't remember the name of, which is similar, like a little paperback, and it was the story of her life anyway. So
Fire,
do you have it?
Fire Child, I think it's called. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right,
yeah, yeah.
Fire Child, yeah. Um, And so I read both and sort of made notes. And she said, "You have 1 month," and then I expect it back. And she actually said, "You have 1 moon." And I remember getting to the end of the moon and then realizing that, fuck, I haven't sent it. Sorry, I haven't sent them back. And then had to, like, posted them back to her. So that was very kind. So this is not her copy, but then subsequent to that, I was at a car boot sale and saw this, and I thought, oh, that's a sign. That's for me. I should have that. So really, this book is it's quite an interesting book. It's sort of very of its time, and it's quite sensationalist and not, very accurate and all of those things. But what it is to me is kind of emblematic of my relationship with her, actually, because so she's somebody who was in his cover, and I'm getting to the point now. So, and she performed his funeral rites as well when he died. And she was just a really interesting woman and sort of a link for me as a young girl, back to the sort of the development of modern witchcraft, if you like. And over the years, we kept like a sporadic correspondence. And so not very much. I went back and I had a tarot reading with her another time. And then when my first novel came out, which was sort of witch themed, I sent her a copy in the post. And I hadn't spoken to her for a while then. And I said, I don't know if you, it was always by the post, snail mail. And I don't know if you remember me. And she wrote back and sent me a copy of the actual letter that I'd sent her when I was 16, 17, said, "Of course I remember you. Here's your letter from my files." Sent it back to me. And that was really nice. And she kind of said, well done on your book and everything. So then a couple of years ago, I was inspired to get back in touch because I thought, oh, I wonder how she is now. And all those years, she had a little business card with an angel printed on it, and I kept that in my purse always as a little good luck charm. And then I contacted her. I didn't hear anything. Then I got an email from her son. This is just after COVID, saying that she'd passed away. And which was really sad. But you sort of, I can't think how old she was, but it wasn't COVID, but it was something else. Anyway, so we had quite a nice correspondence, and I'm still in touch with him. So that's kind of my story. So in a way, it's not about this book, but the book is sort of emblematic of my relationship with her, if you like. And it's about, there's a lot of her experience in this about the Alexandrian coven and all of that business, basically. So yes, there you go. There's my story.
I really like that because these objects are the anchors for stories fundamentally.
Mm,
Sometimes it is the literal object, sometimes it's the metaphorical object, sometimes it's the kind of the generic object. So if it's a copy of a book or a publication or something like
mm.
this,
Yeah,
but that's the
exactly.
thing that takes you back to that uh, uh, early modern phase of the reimagination of witchcraft back in the kind of
Mm,
latter 20
very
yeah
much so.
part of the
Yeah,
century.
exactly. So it's yeah, it's sort of an interesting book in its way, but for me, it's about a sort of connection to a person in particular, and also connection to a current, you know, in a way as well, via her, but then more widely. And but just interesting to know somebody of that era as well, and sort of like to hear her um her take on things and her approach to stuff, which was quite not traditional in like traditional witchcraft like we think of now, but traditional in not a very lefty way. She's
Mm.
quite right wingy and quite like that's cool, but just interesting from that point of view. But yeah, so I really value that.
And thank you very, very much for taking the time to share with us your magical thing. Could we have another look at the cover of the book? That's,
Yes, it's a lovely book because it's got all the naked people on it.
yeah, welcome to the late 60s. Fantastic.
Exactly. And it's got a photo section in the middle, full of, there we go, more naked people if you were under any illusions that nakedness wasn't involved. So there's some nice pictures in here. There's a nice one of an altar and bits and bobs and stuff. But yeah, I do remember her saying to me, there's a lot in there that isn't correct. I was like, okay. Yeah.
Anna, thank you so much for taking the time to share your magical thing. That's really,
Hmm.
really appreciated, my friend. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for having me.